Good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in to this Refuel devotional this morning. As you know, we're going through the book of Proverbs, and I must admit, there are some Proverbs when I read them that make me think to myself, why in the world did this need to be written down? It seems as if the statements that Solomon sometimes makes are so obvious that there's no reason that they need to be written down. However, this is what I discovered. Many of the Proverbs that have the most practical advice and are the most straightforward and seem not to encapsulate much wisdom are the ones we need to remember the most. This morning, we have one of those found in Proverbs 22, verse 2. It says this, "Rich and poor have this in common. The Lord is the maker of them all." This doesn't sound like wisdom on the surface. As a matter of fact, it seems like an obvious statement that Solomon would make, that rich and poor have this in common. God is the maker of them all. However, if you think over your life, the reality for all of us is this, that many times we forget that people who are either rich or poor are made by God. The thing that I believe Solomon wants us to remember here is that God is the maker of every single person walking this earth. The reality for all of us is we don't always treat others as if they have been made by God. Think of the last time someone was getting on your nerves, or think of the last time you were irritated by an individual. Perhaps not even an individual, but a group of people. Rich, poor, Republicans, Democrats, Americans, non-Americans, tall, short, fat, skinny. We find a variety of reasons to separate ourselves, but Solomon wants to make this clear, that every single individual is made by God. Let me give you some very practical and theological implications based upon this very simple verse. The first theological implication is this, that we are all made by God. In the book of Genesis, we're told that God made man in his image. Do you realize that every person walking this earth was made in the image of God? If God took his time to create every person that was made in this world, then that means that we need to respect every person regardless of the differences that we may have with them. All of us have been made by God. The second theological implication is this, all of us are valued by God. Many times when we look at people, we tend to judge them based upon their appearance, their bank account, their job, their career, their social status, their marital status. All of these things cause us to value people in a certain way. Have you met someone and thought to yourself or asked the question, what do you do? Many times we ask people what do they do so that we can find a place to judge them in our minds so we know where to place them on a hierarchy. But the reality for all of us is this, that God has made us all and all of us have value. As a matter of fact, Ephesians tells us that we are God's workmanship. The final theological implication is this, we can all be saved by God. This should be a reminder to each of us that God gave his son, Jesus Christ, to come to this earth and sacrifice his life. Why? To save us all. God's will is that none should perish, whether they be rich or poor. And all of us are in need of being saved by God. The wonderful news and the good news is this, we can all be saved by God. So this is what I want you to do today. As you go throughout your day, at work, at the grocery store, no matter where you are, every person that you see, remind yourself that this is a person that was made by God, is valued by God, and can ultimately be saved by God. This perspective change will help you to see people the way that God sees them, as individuals in need of a Savior. And I believe when we see people in this way, we'll be able to exercise the fruit of the Spirit a whole lot more. We can be patient with people. Why? Because we know they're made by God. We can be generous to people because we know they are saved by God. All of us have an opportunity to see people as equals, to see people as people who were made in the image of God. This very practical proverb that's provided to us by Solomon is a reminder to us today that all of us have been created by God and can be saved by God. Go out and remember that today.